founder and CEO of a company called AGC Toys, where culture creates magic and character. So I actually have a master ability in consumer product goods. So I have been an independent producer for 8 years in a past life.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk 12 podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor and make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming out this year. Without further ado, let's get right into this one. So the person I'm interviewing today is someone that I also met on the show, The Blox. As you guys know, over the past month or two or so, I had quite a few people from the show on, and that's because I made a lot of amazing people. And this person was actually one of the judges, not the competitors. So she was on prior seasons of the Blox, and then the season that I was on, she was judging, and she was actually my judge on the first day of the Blox when we had our little breakouts. She was the person that was judging the room I was in, the pod I was in. And so without further ado, fast forward a couple months now since the Blox. Now we're here. So Andreas, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to get to know you, to get to meet you yet, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Fantastic. So my name is Andrea Furtick, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called AGC Toys, where culture creates magic and character. So I actually have a master ability in consumer product goods. So I have been an independent producer for 8 years in a past life of a different product called the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcanas that I licensed out to US Games. And so now I am all over the licensing space. We've taken all the characters from that project and turned it into this amazing property called Afro Goddess Warriors. And we're currently shopping it out to major retailers after we have just secured some licenses that we needed in the background in order to manufacture.
Amazing. So before all the amazing stuff, before the TV shows, the judging, and everything you have going on now, take us back in a time machine. What was like little Andrea like growing up in Atlanta, Georgia? What was that like?
Oh gosh, so little Andrea didn't grow up in Atlanta, actually. I'm a migrant.
Really?
I am from South Carolina, actually, from Orangeburg, South Carolina. I was quite the leader. I was always in charge. My mom's first name is Mary, and my first name is Mary. And like, even as a little kid, everyone's calling me Miss Mary. Like, I always had such a little presence. I always wanted to have my own business. At my kindergarten graduation, when I was 4, you get up and you say what you want to be when you grow up. And I was like, well, I want to be an artiste, not an artist, but an artiste, because I was fancy. So everyone laughed and they were like, oh, that's so cute. But fast forward 12th grade, we're all getting ready to go to college. I've got all these great scholarships. I've got a scholarship for a full ride to go be a lawyer, but just really wanted to go to art school. So I decided to go to Savannah College of Art and Design. And from there, my artistic journey just kind of took its own form. And I am like the most proud college dropout. I love SCAD. It's a wonderful institution. And for the years that I was there, I learned so much, but that just wasn't my vibe. And life, I think, is one of the greatest teachers. And so that's kind of what happened for me. And after that, I bartended actually for a few years. And a lot of my business knowledge I attribute to this table that I used to get recurringly. If you're a waiter or bartender, you have regulars, you have people that come see you all the time. And it was a group of 4 car salesmen. And listening to them discuss their business dealings was literally some of the greatest business education I ever got in my life. So that is the story up until now, basically, when I started working on my art.
Wow, that's amazing. There's a couple points I want to touch on. So you said you wanted to be an artist. You knew from an early age you wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? At any point in time while you were in like grade school at all, did you ever like sell any candy bars or lemonade stands? Like, did you have like that I like to say the typical entrepreneur, like the lemonade stand, the paper route, anything like that while you were in school?
Well, I didn't actually sell anything like on my own, but when it came to like the fundraiser, I don't know if you remember World's Finest Chocolate was killing it.
Yeah.
Like, was killing it. Always, I needed to win. I don't lose well. And that's actually one of the things that they let me say in the trailer of season 7 of the Blox when I won most investable. I just don't lose well. But that felt like that's kept me winning throughout life. Like it's a narrow path. The fact that I know I'm not gonna be happy if I lose. So I'm always gonna outwork you. I'm always going to out strategize you. Like that's the
Mhm.
role.
No, I resonate with that like 100% because I remember like even still now to this day when I play pickup basketball, I do not lose well. It's I lose. I wouldn't say gracefully, but it's not. I'm not also like I'm not a sore loser. It's somewhere in the middle, right? I have some control, but like back in high school, I remember like if we were on the same basketball team for like let's say gym, and like you weren't trying, like you were dead to me. Like we're there to compete and destroy everyone, and like there's no in between. I'm sorry, we have to win. I don't care
Yeah,
if this is just a gym class or if this is just an elective for you. Like this is the world to me. We have to win. Like I don't care whether it's handball or volleyball or basketball or you have to play field hockey. Sometimes I don't care what sport it was. We had to win.
yeah, yeah. It that's exactly what it is. You're not a sore loser, but you're just not good at it. And when you
Yeah.
understand that about yourself, and I also know that I'm a person that's not ever going to truly be satisfied. Now that has a pro and a con. I
Mm.
can work myself into an oblivion, but at the same time, I'll continuously do and get more, and I'll always have a bigger vision. So,
Yeah.
sometimes I hear all the things people tell you, like, find your plateau, be satisfied, learn to lose gracefully, whatever that could mean. I'm not really a patron to that. You win or
Yeah.
you lose. I don't like, the awards that we're doing now where everyone gets
Participation
something. I
trophies.
think people,
Yeah.
yes, people need to understand, like, you either won or you lost. And like my daughter, she went through something recently where she didn't win, so it was so small, and all I could tell her was like, okay, so what did you do wrong? I'm sorry you didn't win, but what did you do wrong and you could do better next time? Like, you have to keep growing in that fashion. The participation trophies, it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like it disincentivizes the people who wants to work hard. I feel like the way it's set up now, where it's like you get what you put in a lot of cases, and it's like as soon as you take that away, the people who do want to get more, eventually they're gonna say, well, I guess there's no real point, and that's gonna then. I know for me at least, if I were to work twice as hard as someone, like and get the same exact thing despite my results being better, right? If you're working twice as hard and your results are still the same exact thing, you don't deserve more. But if you're producing like double the results, like then it's like, all right, now you should be definitely getting more. But if everyone's just getting a handout, which I love the Blox, and when Boyce was like, oh, like we're gonna have a clear first, second, and third. I mean, you guys are all winners for being here, but there's a clear first, second, and third, and you're gonna place how you place. And there's a lot of you guys, and you guys got to compete like that. I genuinely love that because it sparks something in me to keep it going. And then to fast forward a little bit, so you said you were one of the proudest college dropouts. Now, I feel like I'm the proudest college dropout, so I may have to compete with you for that title. But it's funny because me and my boy Darren, I actually convinced him to drop out of college. He's a year younger than me. We played football together, went to high school together, and now he is a licensed at the same real estate office that I'm still licensed with. Now I don't focus on real estate at all. He's still in it, but we're actually doing a series that we're gonna go shoot later today on how we actually know shoot no the series is the episode that's dropping this Sunday from the week that we're recording is part one of how to successfully drop out of college. And so me
Oh,
and him both
yeah.
dropped out, and so it's like there's so much like when it comes to at least for both of us at least, and I'm sure it may have been somewhat similar. Like there's so much like pressure to graduate for no reason at all. Like if you ask anyone why, you just have to get the degree. And it's just like dropping out. Like I know for Darren's dad, he was totally against it. His mom was kind of like against it, but not pushing as hard. But his dad was totally against it. My grandparents, they immigrated here from DR, so like the college degree was everything to them. That's like the epitome of the American dream is getting that degree. And I also had great grades in school, so you know they always talked like, "Oh, John, he's going to college, he's gonna be this, he's gonna finish," and like just for me to go completely against their wishes was like something that, I mean, for me, I could care less, but like for them, they felt so hurt that I didn't finish college and I didn't pursue what they thought was best for me. So like, what was your experience dropping out, like, in like with the people around you in your circle?
Okay, so remember I told you how they were like, oh, you should have gone to law school, and I had that, and I decided to go to art school. I think the people
Mm.
around me attributed it to me making a misdirection instead of just understanding a bump in the path. That's two
Mm.
totally different things. I have always been a lone ranger. I'm good with that. Like, I'm not saying I don't need support, but I don't need like the massive
The
amount of people like pushing behind me at all moments. I am such a recluse, and you can find me in a bubble most of the time. You know, we've been talking earlier about some things that I have going on right now. They're really important to me. I've literally talked to my mother, my husband, my children. That's it. And you. So here, yeah.
yeah.
And my agent. Yeah, and my agent. Like that's it. Like I get in these bubbles when I want to transform and change my life. And dropping out of college was one of those moments where it was that bubble, like, okay, this is what I want to do. It wasn't that I didn't feel college was beneficial for me. All right, so now we have to go through my entire scope of how I feel about college. First of all, I do not agree or subscribe to the thought process that every person is an entrepreneur. The world still needs workers. We still need doctors, we still need lawyers, accountants. We need those people, and those people must go to school. I believe that. But a lot of the things that we're doing, it's just kind of like paying for an award. I also don't subscribe to that. I don't think that me going to art school meant I was not going to, I was or wasn't going to be able to perform in either a professional on my own or even corporate art environment. Because even in this very moment, college dropout me just have been working really hard. I can, in full confidence, say I am outworking many corporate people, teams of corporate people, little old me
Mhm.
by myself. It's all about your work ethic and what you can retain and how you can push that back out. So, college is just a structured format to try to get you to figure out how to do that. However, it does have some benefits. You know, the people that you meet, you get to branch out kind of into their families and have that network. That is one of the hidden benefits of going to college. Some people will tell you your best asset in college is your college roommate or the people you met. Like you said, your boy and you dropped out together. Well, that's a lifelong connection that college has blessed you with. Okay. So I'm not mad at college for the connections and things like that. But I just think what we have done with the college system in the Americas is not really giving what it's supposed to give. You end up with a
Yeah.
lot of debt, and then you go out here, and then what? I fully could have graduated from SCAD and with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt with no guarantee of employment. Now, yes, most SCAD graduates, you're immediately going to get a job or whatever, but there's no guarantee. And you know how people are laying off and all of this. So you've done all this, you've got these degrees, and then what? Versus you've spent the time just kind of learning a skill. You've met people that have helped you all along the way. So that's going to rival the network of a person who actually went to college. So you have a network in that path as well. And then you just keep trucking and going forward, and your opportunities actually will build, I believe, a lot quicker on the non college entrepreneurial route, as long as you're not in one of those areas that require you to go to school. So that's my full
Yeah.
prospect on college versus non college. But entrepreneur life was for me, and I was totally happy making things because I make physical, tangible products. And that's quite a superpower to take a thought out of your head and turn it into an actual physical thing. And so I love being able to have that ability. It's magic, literally, like the literal magic.
N- No, 100%. I feel like a lot of us, like, I think, so you mentioned something about like how everyone shouldn't be entrepreneurs. And I agree with that 100%. I also believe that everyone should be entrepreneurial. And the reason I say that, because a lot of the things that entrepreneurs have, like in terms of like just wanting the more, coming up with ideas, being creative, like that's not stuff that entrepreneurs solely have. Like, you've never seen a kid who's not doesn't have an imagination. I think there's things that I think in over the course of our upbringing, depending on where you're brought up and how you're brought up, that just kind of get dimmed. Some people get dimmed to a point where they never ever sees the light ever again. But a lot of people like myself, I feel like I was never entrepreneurial growing up, but then I found it during the pandemic. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I always kind of had this in me. I just never applied it to business or money at all. And then once I did, it kind of just connected. And I agree with you 100%. I love the word entrepreneur because a lot of people, if they were able to like let loose, just most people don't want the responsibility that comes with, you know, running a business, having all the strings to pull and everything to, falling down on your shoulders. And so it's like some people, for whatever reason, call them crazy, call them, whatever you want to call them. But like us, for us, it's like we're rather tread that path where all the responsibility is on us because we can look ourselves in the mirror. And if we suck, well, that's on us. But if, it blows up, that's also on us. And, I can rather, I can stomach that versus having to say like, oh, whether I succeed to the highest or not is on someone else. And so I agree with you 100. I agree with pretty much everything you said about like college as well and like the entrepreneurial lifestyle. And like before we get into how you got into what you're in now. The last part I want to touch because I also worked at a restaurant for about 3 years before I quit last year. And so you mentioned how that was one of the greatest opportunities because of some of the people that you got that were recurring clients and you overheard their conversations. In terms of like working at a restaurant, like how has that environment helped shape you into the entrepreneur, help prepare you into the entrepreneur that you are today?
That's a great question. Actually, now that I think about it, there are a lot more things about that job that I use constantly. As a bartender or waiter or waitress, you're doing like 100 things. So I was a bartender at Hooters. So I'm making drinks. I am full on entertaining people, whole conversations. I remember everyone's lives that are around me. I know what your kids did. I know, like, it was a crazy environment, a lot of fun, a lot of distractions happening while I have to do all of these things. And as competitive as I am, like, I wanted everyone to have a great experience. So I knew some bar tricks and like all this other stuff. And so even now, when people are like, how are you doing all of this? It's still just the distractions of the pans in the kitchen and, people talking around me and this not being right. Okay, I got to fix it. Don't have a lot of time. Doing it, not nearly always taking the time to complain. I think there's absolutely no time for really complaining in the restaurant business, and I have adopted that into how I live today. Like, I do, I have my moments where I'm like, oh, this isn't working out, but I have a very small time that I give to that, and then, okay, what are we going to do about it? And so that's,
Yeah.
yeah, restaurant life was a blessing. Actually, it was cool. It's fun times.
Yeah, I always tell people like my age, like, man, don't sleep on the restaurant job. Yeah, in terms of like the status perspective, right? It doesn't look like your traditional white collar job, but like the flexibility usually that you have, right? The entire on top of that, if you're working at a good spot, the money that you make off of tips
Yeah,
usually is really good. And then, as you mentioned, being able to juggle everything, like I don't care what anyone says. Like, it doesn't matter how fancy or high end or good the restaurant looks on the outside, but behind that and them doors, that kitchen is probably a mess. Right? And not like a mess in terms of it's dirty, but it's probably something going on. Someone didn't show up on work on time. There's always, man, my training, I still remember like it was yesterday. I came in, I think I was on Wednesday. Said, John, here's where the liquor is. Here's where the towels is. Here's where the dry storage is. Here's where the cooler is. All right, get to work. And it was just like everything there from that point on would just figure it out. And it's like, as you mentioned, you don't have time to complain. Like, you'll be down a staff, and then boom, you get a walk in. 20 people walked in unexpected. They put an
yeah,
order in. Now the kitchen's backed up, and everyone's order is backed up, and you're already down a staff member. And then it's like there's so much that will always go on all the time. I feel like it was like the purpose, like perfect preparation for like what it is trying to get into entrepreneurship, especially when you don't have any entrepreneurial experience. Like, I didn't come from business or anything like that. So it's like a lot of first time entrepreneurs, like everything I was learning from the start was like brand new information to me. And I feel like because working at a restaurant, working in that fast paced environment where you don't really have time to complain, as you mentioned. You don't have time to really think sometimes. You just got to go into like flip your brain on autopilot. And it's like, boom, now you're clearing 3 plates and a drink, and you got to make sure you got to bust the table on the way back. And that client wants a check, and all these different, it's like this giant chess game that you have to play all the time. I think, as I said, I think a lot of people would benefit greatly from working at a restaurant. But you mentioned
Yeah,
something
shout out
earlier
to the
too.
restaurant
Um,
industry.
yeah, big shout out. I loved it. It's the only thing. The only reason why I left, honestly, is because I mean I wasn't gonna be there forever, but like it was like every week that I clocked in with just another reminder that I'm only here because my business has yet to take off. And so it would like hurt my ego clocking in every week because it's like, well, another week where you still need to rely on other money to fund your business instead of your business funding itself. And so like after a while, it just took a toll on me. So once I had a really good launch last year in June, and I was like, screw it, I'm gonna take this momentum, and then
Yeah.
and just run with that because if I can't quit now, when am I ever gonna quit? Because as I said, I had some momentum behind me, and so I just ran with it. And June 19th, so Juneteenth makes exactly 1 year since I put in my 2 weeks.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's time is flying. It's been this year has been hard. But you mentioned too something earlier. You mentioned about something about how taking an idea from your head and like actually producing something tangible out of it is like magic. And I feel like that's one of the things as an entrepreneur is like you have to see things that no one else sees and find a way to bridge that into reality. So like talk to us a little bit like out of all the different things that you could have started a business, right? All the different vehicles, right, of business, what led you into the path that you're in now, in the industry that you're in now?
Okay, so that's an interesting story too. So it actually was, remember I said I don't lose well. So it was a failure that I had to figure out how to shift and manipulate into something magical and wonderful. And we have to do that a lot of times as an entrepreneur. Something goes terribly wrong. So when pandemic hit, I had been producing my tarot and divination sets solo by myself for many years from China. And the cost of paper, the cost of shipping, and just what it was taking for it to come, just, oh gosh, just ruined me. It ruined me. And I took like 2 months of sulking of what am I going to do now. I'm a person, I feel like I'll do things and I don't know why I have them yet. So I had created a statuette from the tarot cards, which is like a fancy figurine. It was one of my edition characters, the
Hmm.
Supreme, which has now turned into the main character of the IP collection. And so that product, when I made it, it's what I call a passion product. You have your products that make a ton of money, that the return on it is so good. But then you always have one or two products that you barely break even if you lost money. But selling it brings so much legitimacy and notoriety to what you have going on that you kind of got to do it. So a little bit before that, I had sold a group of those statuettes and they just weren't feasible to keep in stock like what it cost. However, I couldn't keep them in stock because people wanted them so badly. So at that point, I started thinking about like the story of everything. I'm actually a master in tarot divination, and most people don't know tarot is actually a psychological process from Carl Jung's philosophies. It's called The Hero's Journey. You can look it up. And it's a story that basically means we all live the same life, regardless of how much money you have, whether you're a man or woman, or whatever you have going on. We all have the same life. It's the same ups and downs, the same bumps, the same way things will kind of shape around you, just at different calibers with different characters and different settings. So I gave some speeches at the Northwestern Tarot Symposium and the International Divination event. Shout out to Michelle Welsh at Soultopia. She gave me that opportunity to give the keynotes there. And I was able to then really, really hone in on the storyline of tarot when I started putting those presentations together. So at that moment, I was planning to have a doll collection, just looking at the characters like, oh, this would be cool. Because with the problems that I was having with shipping, I learned about licensing. And for anyone who doesn't know, licensing means you have a product that you, or an IP, an intellectual property that you own and have copyrighted or trademarked, and you are going to let a larger manufacturing company take on that production. So after I gave those speeches, I was able to talk with a ton of different manufacturers, and I settled with US Games, and they're awesome. And they now handle the production of these tarot cards. Well, there was a full year in between there that I did not account for of what am I supposed to do? No cards are running, because what used to take me in independent production 3 months or so to bring something to life, I now have teams of people that have networks of things that they have to do in order for something to take off. So it takes literally a year. So that's also something that's very interesting. Going from an independent production to mass market, you have to understand it's going to take a lot longer for these projects to, come to life. So in that year, I developed the IP collection, which is where I wrote the story, Nova Goddess of the Universe and the Activation of the Journey of the Gods. And then I created the Afro Goddess Warrior IP, which is 5 characters where now we've connected them to all the emotional intelligence principles of tarot. So it's super cool and magical. And so it's been also an interesting process shifting into the toy market, because I can't necessarily tell the children about tarot. Every parent doesn't want that. So then there's, how do I dial it back and make it palatable to my consumer? Because that's something that we don't always pay attention to as an entrepreneur. A lot of people will be like, I don't understand why my product's not working, why it's failing. Some people like it, some people don't. It's always going to be that way. But yes, you need to like it, but when you see that the market requires something different, you have to be flexible enough to figure out how to still keep the part that you love, but make it palatable to your consumer. So in my case, that was extracting so much of the, actual structural tarot and just making it magic and about fun. So for instance, the goddess of emotion, Eleonora, that would be your water vibes. Those would be your Pisces, your, those types of people. But for a child, that's just someone learning to control their emotions. Be nice, be happy, how to deal with your anger. So there's levels to everything that I'm doing now. So we actually now have a 3-tier system. So we can service adults with the Afro Goddess tier, where we have the tarot cards and this fancy statuettes. We have a junior tier with the dolls and, the action story. And then we have Starseed Academy, which makes my heart just overjoyed, because it's where you learn to be a star. And so those are plush, and everything is just so cute. And so now that it's all finished and coming into realization, it's like all those parts that were here and there, and I didn't know why I'd done that or created this, they're all kind of meshing together. So that's how I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, toy world.
I was gonna say, you mentioned a lot. Yeah, you mentioned a lot that I'm trying to figure out where to start. So you mentioned one. I'll start where you just kind of left off, right? Where you do a lot of things not knowing where it's gonna be. And I think, like, when it comes to ideas, I think that when we're blessed with ideas, the ideas aren't ours. And so a lot of people stay on the fence and then get mad when they see their idea, let's say on a TV commercial, like 3 months later or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, you had the opportunity to take action on it, and the idea was going to come into this world one way or another. You slept on it, and so someone else did what you lacked to, you failed to do, which is act on the idea. And I think a lot of times, like, I think that's why for me, I've been able to get to where I'm getting to. And you mentioned too something earlier. I love your wording. I don't know if you did it intentionally or not, but you didn't really mention the word failure. You said, bumps in the road or pivots or shifts. I think you said pivots or shifts. I think one or
yeah,
the other. But I love the wording there, because a lot of time where, for me especially, because I got into real estate, right? I told you I had my real estate license before we hit record. I didn't sell any houses, but that got into teaching social media, and then that I didn't do anything with that. I tried to create a content agency, and that didn't work out, which led me into eventually teaching AI. And like now, I got something going with AI and have some momentum. But had I not had these little bumps where I was able to pivot and transform into something else, I would have never been able to get to where I got to now, because I would have been so stuck on, oh, I have to make real estate work. I have to figure it out. I have to sell a house, instead of trying to listen and understand and like figure out, okay, is this for the current season that I'm in, or is this just like kind of like a stepping stone? So I love that you kind of been mentioning that throughout most of your stories throughout this presentation, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. Like I kind of just been keeping notice of that. And then the second thing you mentioned too is Carl Jung and the hero's journey. So for anyone that doesn't know about the hero's journey, that is like a public speaking cheat code. Once you know how to tell stories, like people are going to be drawn to what you have to say, whether it's at a networking event, whether you're at a conference, whether you're out at the bar and you're just talking to random people. Doesn't matter where you're at. Once you learn how to tell stories, like, I think that's also why I was able to perform well on the Blox, because I've done public speaking. I had multiple engagements before in person, and I had more than I can count virtually prior to me ever being on the Blox. So even on the days where I felt like I didn't know what I was talking about, like I could just go up there and make something sound good at the very least. And so it's like that's all from like learning about the hero's journey. And when I've been diving into public speaking and getting better at that. And then you mentioned too something those third part I wanted to mention when you were talking about the business, and that's what I wanted to ask you, right? So like there's like a very fine line you kind of have to tread between like only creating stuff that people will buy so you can make money, and then only creating stuff that you personally enjoy. And so it's like, what kind of advice would you give there? Because it could feel like you're selling yourself out sometimes, where it's like, okay, like I really love this thing, but like, all right, but the people want this. So it's like, how do you navigate that? Like, what advice would you give so you don't feel like you're selling yourself out? So you don't feel like you have to completely just like dump out the baby that you just created with your whatever product or service that you're launching.
Okay, so the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is my motivation behind this? What you said is absolutely true. Some people make products just for money, and some people make products for passion. And obviously, you want to get paid, but you have a certain level of passion that adds to what you're doing. Now, if you're a person who's making a project just for money, you're going to have a very easy time shifting and, making the product what the consumer wants, because you're only in it for the money. And be honest with yourself. I I understand and accept both places on the shelf. However, I can see through a fake in a moment. I can see through whether you really have passion for the product or whether you've just created something that you're just selling. And it's very, very noticeable also to a consumer. So be honest about why you're doing it. And the reason for that is, at that moment, you're going to go out and you're going to hire someone who is passionate in that area, because they're going to be a much better spokesperson for that product than you are. Now, if you're a person who has this passion project, like I told you, I had the statuette, it didn't make me any money, like literally broke even. From what I paid, it was very expensive to make. There was mold costs that a lot of people don't account for when you want to make a tangible product like that. You have to buy the mold for the product to be made. That can run you tens of thousands of dollars, as it did I. Made no money on that project. It was a passion project. People still wanted it. But had I wanted to continue it, and it got really big, like even right now, as I'm pitching this particular product to maybe like a large company that makes something like that, like Funko or Bandai, or these are just hypothetical situations, but as I would pitch to them, I would have to understand there would be a partnership now where they're going to say, for the market, because they study the market, they keep in complete contact with the market, for the market, we may need her eyes to be friendlier, or this to be this way, or the clothes to be different. Like, those are all worthy conversations, because nobody wants to do all of this and make nothing from it. Like, that's the reality of this. And I love that everyone wants to be like, oh, I just want to help the world. Yes, you want to help the world, but you also want that to be a give and take. Legacy is not created through you just helping the world, because one day you will no longer be here. And that story can be manipulated and changed and done however, if there was no tangible evidence of your partaking in this help that you left in the world. And so I think that by the time you put all that together, if you can really learn to work with a team and allow other ideas in, you'll be able to shift and transform and, make what needs to be made for the market. I've had some moments like that where there were certain things that were really important to me, to my toy collection, and it's having conviction. Some parts of it I will not accept being changed. Those are the parts that I'm like, no, and you have to have a real reason, like a respectable, like, no, this is the reason why. But then there are other parts of it I'm a little bit more lenient on, dependent upon maybe the material costs too much, or, whatever the situation may be. You're really going to have to figure out, how to actually forge forward, because it's beautiful, but if you're the only one that gets to have it, what's the point?
No, 100%. I think that whole notion of like, oh, I want to help the world. I call it the Miss America answer, and I usually refer to it when I'm talking about like marketing specifically, because a lot of people make video content. It's like who your target audience? I help everybody. It's like great, and that's not gonna work because your content isn't gonna reach anyone because you're trying to speak to too many people. And so it's kind of like the same thing that you mentioned, just in a different thing. But I wanted to kind of ask you too, because I've been curious, because I mean you've been a judge on a TV show where a bunch of entrepreneurs are on, right? And you, of course, have already know tons of entrepreneurs. What would you say? I'm curious. What would you say is if there are differences or similarities between business owners who are selling like physical products versus digital products? Do you think there's like a big difference between like succeeding in both in either of the the different, I guess you call it, the paths or whatever? Like what would you say are like some of the differences or similarities that you noticed?
Yeah, there are tons of differences and similarities. So, obviously you're both selling a thing. You're going to have to figure out how to connect with your consumer. But when you have a physical thing, that hurts so I just, and I've done both, but it hurts so much more when somebody tells you. It's like saying your baby is ugly. Like it's to hear out your baby is ugly. It's difficult to hear that they don't like your thing a little bit more than the digital
Yeah.
product, because a digital product, you can shift that a little bit easier perhaps to have different versions of it or something like that. But like I'm talking about mold costs, like you telling me you don't like that, the hair is like this, I can't go make you magical hair just for you. So you
Yeah.
have to find your market and be okay really with not it being everybody, like you were saying. Like nobody's business is just for everybody. And I think that's like an age old saying. I think someone for everyone is for no one, and that is very
You
true.
speak to everyone, you reach no one.
Yeah, yes. So uh, they're same, but they're different. I respect both of them, and it's really interesting at the Blox to see all the different people get together, because the techie people and the digital people help the creators and tinkerers, as I would like to call them, with all of the techie things. Like I was late today because I had to figure out how to get on here, and you, as a tech person, already accounted for that. But I make things, know your ministry.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Ministry.
100%, 100%. Another quote too. I don't know if this is what you were looking for, but it's a friend to everyone is an enemy to thyself. Is another good one.
Yes, that's good. That's good. We'll go with that.
Right. But yeah, and so man, I mean, I feel like I could just keep on talking to you forever, but time has been flying. Where could we actually? I mentioned this before we hit record. Like a lot of people hop on are like have digital products and services, so it's like usually like a link to somewhere, right? But like for you, you have something that we can actually go home, buy, and take home with us and actually hold in person. So like, where can we go to find you? Where can we go to find all the things that you're selling, whether it's you for the kids or for the adults? Where can we find you at? So that we can get more of what you have going on and what you're putting into the world.
Oh, awesome. So I'm always on LinkedIn, Andrea Furtick. You can find me there. You can go on agctoysinc.com and see more about my toy initiatives. And the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcanas is available at tons of places: Amazon, Walmart, Barnes Nobles, tons of places online. But I'm always happy with my Amazon customers because you get to leave their great reviews. So if you can hop over there, if you're interested in divination, the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcanas is killing it in the tarot category. Like I said, a winner. Uh, other than
Hey,
that,
wait, weren't you ranked? Wait, hold on, hold on. I think I seen your post on the Blox Facebook group. Weren't you like ranked like the top or something like that?
so I have been keeping track of our Amazon sales, like day and night. Now, mind you, it fluctuates because the way people sell, but we hit like number 8, which is fantastic. Like there's like 3,000 in the tarot
Wow.
category. And with hitting number 8, that made us like number 30,000 in books. But mind you, there are over 9 million book listings on Amazon. So we're doing really well over there. So I'm very, very excited about our initiatives with the tarot cards, because that's really the root of everything. Because I hand painted all the art and wrote the books, and it's been a really cool ride realizing that into a very, very large perspective. But as far as the toys are concerned, you can't actually buy them yet. However, in spring 2025, you'll be walking into one of your favorite major retailers and you'll be seeing them there.
Amazing. So now it's time for our famous 5. And for anyone that wants it, the links are down below to make sure to check those out. And for anyone that's not good at math, 30,000 out of 9 million, I don't know, it's like 0.01% or something like that, or 0.1%. So you're doing amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And so now it's time for our famous 5. Question number 1 is, what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
The most impactful lesson that I learned in life is perspective is everything. You choose whether you win, you choose whether you fail. You choose whether you decide that something has defeated you. You choose whether you're going to keep fighting. And if you are a person who just knows to keep going and have that perspective, you'll never really lose.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
The most admirable trait someone can have is resilience. Life knocks us around really bad sometimes. And literally, like I said, just at all times, you have to keep going. When it's scary, when it's hard, when you're crying, when you're hurt, you have to keep going. You have to keep trying, because the day you give up, it's over. So resilience.
If you had to change someone's life but only had one book to recommend, which would it be?
A book to recommend how to change your life. A journal. Write your own story.
That's actually the first I've heard. Yeah, that's actually the first I've gotten that. That's a good recommendation. All right. Question number 4 is, what is the legacy that you're working on leaving behind?
The legacy that I am working on leaving behind is the legacy that beauty comes from inside and not outside. You know, as I've moved into the toy space and like done all of my market analysis, it's very evident that our toy community and our world basically is very focused, especially for toys of culture and color, on the outer appearance. All we ever talk about is the hair, the skin. And that is all very important and beautiful and characteristics that need to be carried out. But what about the inner beauty of people? And, you know, as a kid, you're so, you know, you can soak it up. You can soak up how you're supposed to grow up. And these toys kind of show you what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to be. And so that's why it's really important that we connected our toys to emotional intelligence and, you know, different types of mesh categories, because that is what the children actually need, us to educate them through the entertainment on more than just how to dance, how to do your hair, how to do your makeup, what clothes to wear. Yeah, you can do all of that, but are you a good person? Do you know how to keep going? Do you know how to handle your feelings? Do you know how to actually take a thought and turn it into a thing? Do you know how to learn? That's an ability. Like, those are the principles of the Afro Goddess Warriors and what we're teaching to young girls. We don't want you to be damsels in distress. We want you to be warrior women.
And final question, for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
For anyone who wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, the first step I would like for you to do is to sit down and write down what you believe at this moment that end goal looks like. Say 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever you're comfortable with. Like that whole visual. Wake up in the morning. I woke up this morning and I drank a fancy coffee out of my Keurig with gold, like really dial in on what it is you want. I went to my office on the 100th floor with the beautiful view, and then I had a meeting with this company and blah blah blah, and we like actually detail out what your life could look like. The reason for that is the only way you can get to something is to kind of know where you're going, have some sort of trajectory. You may not actually end up in that spot, but you backtrack and you create steps that get you where you're trying to go. So actually write that big, beautiful vision. Like, what would you do if you thought you couldn't fail? Not even if you thought, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Write that entire visual out and then backtrack those steps and get started.
Amazing, Andrea. That's our time here on the show. Thank you so much for hopping on. I know you're super busy right now. You got a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So thank you for blocking off some time. And I'm looking forward to catching up. And I'm definitely gonna let you know when I'm in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's later this year. I'll be flying down there, so I'll definitely keep you in the loop and hopefully see you again in person.